Welcome, friends, and welcome to everyone who has recently joined Noesis Mysteria. Today, we continue our journey through the remarkable history of colour. As always, I'm Desiree. If you enjoy these explorations, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Among all colours, blue occupies a truly unique place in human history. It is perhaps the only colour that has rarely been regarded as a negative symbol. Priests and kings admired it. Artists and theologians entrusted it with their deepest ideas. Even today, in the world of fashion, blue remains black's greatest rival. The story of blue begins in ancient Mesopotamia. Lapis lazuli, sapphire and indigo dye were treasured possessions, reserved largely for royalty and the temples. Blue adorned palaces, sanctuaries, and the garments of rulers. To the peoples of the ancient world, it represented protection, prosperity, and the favor of heaven. During the early Middle Ages, however, blue occupied a far more modest position. It appeared in clothing and textiles, yet played only a limited role in Christian symbolism. Everything changed in the 12th century. Blue gradually entered stained glass windows, icons, altarpieces, and liturgical vestments. The growing devotion to the Virgin Mary proved especially significant, as she was increasingly portrayed wearing blue robes. Before long, the colour itself became a symbol of nobility and royal authority. It is hardly surprising, then, that the kings of France chose an azure shield adorned with golden fleurs-de-lis as their royal emblem. The Renaissance opened an entirely new chapter in the history of blue. Artists observed that distant mountains and the sky itself acquire a delicate bluish haze. They began using blue to create depth and perspective, transforming it into one of painting's most powerful visual tools. Later generations of painters discovered that blue could express far more than distance. It became the color of light, atmosphere, and emotion. For some artists, it embodied splendor and magnificence. For others, silence, contemplation, and the quiet life of the soul. By the 20th century, blue had moved far beyond the boundaries of religion and art. It had become the color of infinity, meditation, science, and technology. Even today, it remains one of humanity's most beloved colors. The story of green unfolded very differently. In the Bible, green seldom appears as an independent symbolic color. When it is mentioned, it usually refers to grass, vegetation, or the fertility of the earth. Only the emerald appears several times among the precious stones of Scripture. Ancient Egypt, however, gave green an altogether different meaning. It became the color of life, renewal, and fertility. Osiris, the god of the earth, vegetation, and resurrection, was frequently depicted with green skin. Even the hieroglyph associated with the color was derived from the stem of the papyrus plant, itself a symbol of growth and prosperity. Medieval Europe viewed green with remarkable ambiguity. On one hand, it was the color of prosperous merchants, bankers, and wealthy townspeople. On the other, it belonged to fortune, uncertainty, and the mysterious forces that lay beyond human understanding. Perhaps that is why witches, dragons, and fantastic creatures so often appeared clothed in shades of green throughout medieval legend. Then, in the 19th century, the story took a dramatic turn. Following the invention of brilliant new green pigments, Europe fell in love with the color. It appeared everywhere, in fabrics, wallpapers, books, toys, and fashionable interiors. The enthusiasm did not last. Many of these pigments were found to contain arsenic. The beautiful green that had enchanted Europe proved dangerously poisonous, earning a reputation from which it would take decades to recover. Only in the 20th century was green fully restored to favour. Once again, it became the colour of life, nature, and hope. Today, green is associated with ecology, health, safety, and harmony. In many ways, the modern world has simply rediscovered the meaning that the ancient Egyptians had already recognized thousands of years ago. Yellow has one of the most remarkable histories of any color. It began as the color of the sun and of gold, yet over the centuries it came to represent betrayal, exile, and even madness. Strictly speaking, yellow did not originally exist as a distinct symbolic color. In the ancient world, it was inseparable from gold, and yet it was among the very first colors humanity learned to produce and use. Its story should have been one of triumph. Instead, it became one of history's greatest reversals. No other color has experienced such an extraordinary fall from grace. Across the ancient Near East, solar cults adorned temples and priestly garments with brilliant shades of yellow and gold. They reflected divine light, royal splendor, and heavenly favor. Yet yellow also possessed a darker destiny. As medicine gradually developed, physicians paid increasing attention to the color of the skin, the eyes, bile, and urine in diagnosing illness. Slowly, yellow began to acquire entirely different associations. It became linked with sickness, aging, physical decline, and the frailty of the human body. But medicine alone did not determine the fate of yellow. Religious symbolism proved even more influential. In parts of the Islamic tradition, yellow also acquired unfavorable associations. It could signify falsehood, betrayal, old age, and disease. And in certain historical contexts, it became part of the visual language used to depict Jewish communities. Gradually, yellow became identified with Judas. Curiously, nowhere in the Bible are we told the color of his clothing. Yet medieval and Renaissance artists increasingly chose to portray him wearing yellow garments. A new symbolism was born. Yellow became the color of betrayal, the color of deceit, the color of broken trust. Centuries passed. The symbolism only grew stronger. As accusations against the Jewish people over the death of Christ reached their height in medieval Europe, yellow gradually became a mark of public condemnation. In Conrad Witz's Synagoga, 1434 to 1435, the female figure representing the synagogue is clothed in yellow. The color is no longer decorative. It has become part of the painting's symbolic language. Across medieval Europe, Jewish communities were compelled in many places to wear yellow badges or identifying marks. Heretics and those cast beyond the accepted social order were likewise dressed in yellow. Before his execution, the reformer Jan Hus was clothed in yellow robes as a visible sign of condemnation and exclusion. By the 16th century, the symbolism had become even harsher. Following the murder of Admiral Gaspard de Coligny during the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, his house was painted yellow. Even its windows were covered in the same color. Yellow had become a public accusation, a mark of disgrace, a warning to everyone else. Gradually, yellow ceased to describe a color alone. It became the color assigned to those whom society chose to cast outside itself, the color of exclusion. At the same time, painting itself was beginning to change. If we look closely at many medieval depictions of Samson and Delilah, one detail appears again and again. Delilah is often dressed in brilliant shades of yellow or orange. her hair glowing with the same colors. The artists are leaving us a visual clue, a warning. Color begins telling the story long before we have read the narrative itself. By the 15th century, the negative symbolism of yellow had become so deeply rooted that it extended to almost everything associated with deceit, envy, falsehood, and public disgrace. Gradually, yellow lost its ancient splendor as the color of the sun. Instead, it became the color of shame, a warning to others. Little by little, yellow came to represent those whom society chose to exclude from itself. It seemed as though the story of the color had reached its end. But this is precisely where the most unexpected chapter begins. In the 17th century, one artist rediscovered the forgotten beauty of yellow. That artist was Vermeer. His paintings are filled with an extraordinary golden light. It enters gently through open windows, illuminating the quiet grace of women, the peaceful stillness of domestic interiors, the awakening of the astronomer, and the tender emotions of a young woman reading a letter. Once again, yellow became the color of warmth, of home, of quietness, of ordinary human life. Yet its true rebirth still lay ahead. It would come through the work of a painter who saw in yellow nothing less than the sun itself. In one of his letters to his brother Theo, Vincent van Gogh wrote, "The sun absolutely dazzles me and strikes me on the head. Such a sun, such a light. I can only call it yellow, sulphur yellow, lemon yellow, golden yellow. How beautiful yellow is." For Van Gogh, yellow once again became what it had been thousands of years earlier, the color of light, the color of life, the color of the inner flame. One need only look at his sunflowers, or at the yellow house, to understand how profoundly this color shaped his vision of the world. Modern science, from Newton to Goethe, translated color into the language of optics and physics, stripping away many of its ancient mysteries. We have grown accustomed to thinking of colors as something self-evident. Yet the magical and esoteric traditions preserved many of the older correspondences. Inspired in different ways by the work of Newton and Goethe, S. L. MacGregor Mathers and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn developed symbolic systems in which colors were linked to the spheres of the tree of life, the elements and the planets, creating a framework through which the invisible world of symbols could be understood. The history of yellow is extraordinary. It was once the color of the gods. Then it became the color of exclusion. It endured centuries of misunderstanding before finding its way back to the light. Perhaps colors themselves never truly change. Perhaps it is only what people choose to see in them that changes. Colors do more than describe the world. They help create it. They awaken emotions, shape our moods, and give form to the silent codes by which societies live. Even the colors we choose to wear often reveal something of our inner lives. Our perception of color is never entirely objective. It is shaped by memory, habit, culture, and expectation. In the end, we see not only what is before our eyes, but also what we are prepared to see. And with that, our journey through the history of color comes to an end. I hope it has been not only informative, but also thought-provoking. I'd love to know which color surprised you the most, so do share your thoughts in the comments. In our next episode, we shall explore another fascinating subject: the language of symbols. Until then, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoyed today's journey. My name is Desiree.